Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rose City Politics. We're so glad you're taking the time out of your life to join us here. It means a lot to us. Our panel tonight includes Doug Sartori. Doug, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Where are you coming from?
You may recognize this hotel, which is actually located in New York, but it was the setting for the 1994 classic Road to Wellville, Alan Parker film. You may remember it.
No, not at all.
Okay. It 40,
not even
41% on the tomato meter. It's like a extremely scatological sex farce starring Matthew Broderick and Bridget Fonda. Highly recommend it if you've got a couple hours to kill.
I have a rule not to watch movies that star murderers, but interesting that you decide to do that. No, I'm just kidding. You know, Matthew Broderick's great, except for the whole murder thing. But we're glad to have you here, Doug. We also have Don Merrifield here.
You haven't seen that dark there, John.
Yeah, it did. Holy cow. And to be honest, I didn't know Matthew Broderick killed somebody. So there you go.
He ran over a person and got away with it. Like, I'm not the one who chose the background.
Okay,
that doesn't count.
No, so let's back off the whole murder thing then, John. If Mr. Broderick and his lawyers are listening,
Mr. Broderick. We are not going to get a letter from fucking Matthew Broderick.
We're big fans. Tell you that. We appreciate all the work you've done.
Godzilla was awesome.
It was.
I'm sorry that my co-hosts apparently are very concerned of Matthew Broderick's retribution. But anyways, we are so glad to have all of you here listening tonight. It means a lot tonight. It's a lot to us. Maybe I won't be here next week. Maybe Matthew Broderick will stop it. Anyways, we're glad to have you here. If you're a Patreon subscriber, unlike Matthew Broderick, head over to patreon.com/Rose City Politics. We greatly appreciate that. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, MySpace, anywhere online. We're there. If you want to follow us on a podcasting app, subscribe. We're there as well. We also have the BizX column that we put out every single month. You're going to want to read that. And of course, Liuna 625, Building Better Communities. They help build this show. They build it up every week. So we appreciate them immensely. We got a great show.
Did you introduce DonMerrifieldJr.com?
I didn't. I was so concerned about focusing on the two of you after the Matthew Broderick spill that I wanted to just avoid any more conversation. But
okay.
DonMerrifieldJr.com is a resource that I used when I was in university. I was a young kid. I was exploring different, political ideologies, and I finally found a place where I felt welcome.
Oh no, that's DonMerrifield.com. It's a common mistake.
Yeah,
this is Don Merrifield Jr.
Thanks for promoting my real estate website. 519-562-1796. Call anytime.
I just have to say, as a young kid in university, I was expanded. My mind was expanded to the possibilities of what socialism can bring us all. So I really appreciate you making yourself available to young people like me. We had a group on campus. It was called Dons, and we were all hanging out, smoking cigars, drinking expensive whiskey, and it was subsidized by the student union. So I just want to thank you, Don.
Well, you know what they say about socialism? Everyone's equal. It's just some more people are more equal than others.
Hey, as long as I'm at the top, I don't care.
That's exactly how it works.
So we're going to get to the show tonight. We got a really great show. We're going to be talking about housing development here, approved by a committee, presumably a Windsor, Ontario committee. Maybe it was approved by Don. Who knows? We'll get to that. We're going to be talking about the City of Windsor Sunshine List. A lot of push on that. I was actually surprised. We saw so much push about the Sunshine List and how it related to the health unit. And I was just looking at it going like, if there was a year that we don't necessarily need this story, I don't know, maybe this year, don't want to necessarily see like pushback against it. And then we're going to talk about the mega hospital and potentially 7 wonders of Windsor. And I don't want to hear what Don has to say. His first wonder of Windsor is, Lord knows, it's going to be inappropriate and no one wants to know.
Her name is Candy. She's a really nice lady. So.
Well, we appreciate you giving us that. So the first story that we're going to be talking tonight, zoning for condo building near Southwood Lakes approved. Thank you to AM 800's Gord Bacon for putting this one out. A rezoning request for a controversial development in Windsor has moved on. The next step. This residential project is on the corner of North Talbot and 6th Concession. It will be a 4-story, 53-unit building. And God forbid in Windsor, if you didn't have parking spots, this will come with 69 parking spaces. Nice. 9 delegates addressed the Development and Heritage Standing Committee. I'm glad you like that one, Don. And they raised concerns over parking, traffic safety, flooding, and privacy. You know, this is the kind of stuff that comes up with it. Let's just get into the conversation, though. Don, this is why we do the Developing with Don segment.
Very popular segment. Yeah, the kids love it.
It's our most written in segment. Absolutely. People want it. What do you have to say about this development? Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I mean, we've had this conversation for a long time. Any development in Windsor is a good thing right now. There's obviously a lack of housing in Windsor, especially a lack of affordable housing. Not that this is going to be a quote unquote affordable. I guess it depends what your idea of affordable is. If you remember, we did a show on this probably, 2 months ago. There was some pushback from the community of Southwood Lakes. They were really not interested in having low-rise condos in their neighborhood. That was right around the same time we did the show on people complaining that developments were going to ruin their sunset views. So, we always deal with very important issues when developments come up. So it's good. It got approved. Obviously, they worked with the community a bit and maybe made a few changes to make everybody happy. But, I don't see any negatives on this. That whole piece of land right over there is probably your last bit of what was farmland back in the day before you were born, off North Talbot there. So, yeah, it's a good project. It's only 53. What did you say? It was 53 units. I mean, it's not a ton of units, but something's better than nothing. So yeah, I don't see how it's a bad thing. Obviously the people who live in Southwood Lakes are, probably in the higher income bracket. So they don't want us riffraff hanging around there, but yeah, it's a good thing anywhere there's space. I mean, stick some houses. There's a lot of condos being built and that's what the city needs. Because on the affordability quote unquote list, anything around $400,000 is cheap these days. So I assume this is kind of where they will start pricing those at.
Don, I'm curious. I want to ask you, roughly speaking, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how many new units are being constructed in a year in Windsor?
Quite a bit. I mean, especially in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of projects like this, low-rise condos. A lot of them have turned out to be rentals where the owner just, they're condominiums, but the developer just kept them for themselves and is renting them out. Excuse me. I'm going to pull numbers out of the air here. I think Fraser did something on this and I saw on Twitter, and it was, if I had to say, Windsor alone was probably 300 or 400 units last year. Which, is good. I mean, there's a lot being developed more outside the city, just basically due to, having more available land, but you're getting a lot of these type of low-rise developments being done in Windsor and even not for rentals. So yeah, the more, the merrier. There's going to be a bunch going out towards LaSalle. I know, I think Peter Valente is doing some more out off Amy Croft out in, no, I know he is because I was out there a few weeks ago doing some more low rises out there off Amy Croft over by Manning Road in Tecumseh. I think there's some more going around Banwell, and I know Christian Lefebvre with Brado Family Holdings is doing one, I believe, on Edgar and Wyandotte, somewhere around there, another low rise. And his development corporation has built quite a few of those. He built all the ones on Banwell. So yeah, there's a lot of those going up, and I don't think that's going to change in the near future because that's what you need. You need it for retirees. A lot of retirees are selling their houses and, buying a $400,000 condo. And even from the rental standpoint, I know the rents are high. A lot of these start around $2,500 a month, but there is a market for kind of that higher end rental unit. And that again is a lot of people who are retiring, just selling their house, and instead of buying something, will just, if they bought their house 30 years ago for $100,000, sold it for 60. If you got $500,000 laying around, you can rent for quite a while, $2,500 a month.
Yeah, so I'm curious about, I just want to kind of dig into this a little bit. So this process, the process of moving multi-residential unit like this, a significant low-rise apartment building, moving it forward like this, how much of a disincentive is the process to developers to start a project like this?
A lot of it was financial. I mean, the condo market in Windsor was never really mature, and that was basically a price point situation. You know, think back 10 years ago, why would you buy a condo for $200,000 that's, 1,200 square feet when you could have bought a brand new raised ranch that's 1,400 square feet for the same price? And you don't have, condo fees. A lot of the older building condo fees are getting quite high. You're talking $500-$600 a month. And with interest rates so low, $500, $600 is like $150,000 on a mortgage. So instead of buying a $400,000 condo, you can buy a $550,000 house and have the same carrying cost monthly. So I think before, a lot of it was just the numbers didn't work. Dealing with the city was kind of a pain in the butt for these kind of things, but obviously, Councilor Bordelon with the CIP downtown, they've been pushing that for quite a while because, the city needs these kind of developments. So right now the math works. I mean, I don't like to call out my developer friends, but they're making money hand over fist right now with these units if they're able to sell them for, $300-$400 a square foot. And then, even using numbers that the Meadowbrook development, the housing that the city's doing, I mean, those are running about $300 a square foot, which is a little bit expensive. So if you can build them for $250 and sell them for $350, you're making, quite a return on your investment. So I think you're going to see a lot more of these. And, the land, it's number of units on land. I mean, it's, if you want to put houses there, you're only going to get 10 houses, or in this case, you can get 50 units, right? So it's a math problem.
That's good. 53 units. That's 53 more families that can enjoy the beautiful decorative lights in the park in
That's right.
Southwood Lakes.
Yeah, it just means there's going to be more people complaining next year if those decorative lights don't get through the budget process.
I wonder, when do you think we're going to start seeing more infill done?
Well, this actually is infill because there's houses all around it.
Okay, interesting. So, but like I'm not talking about like I would classify this not as like a mega development, but it's a good development, right? But I guess I'm saying more so like, when do you think that we're going to start to see like 3 houses taken down and a permit to put up 12 units on that type of property? Like, when does Windsor have to actually start like asking serious questions about development? Not to say that this isn't serious, but like, it's going to start happening. I was driving down Bridge Street, maybe, or, Curry Street a couple weeks ago, and I came across it was a single family dwelling, space that had been demolished. And there were 2 developments on one piece of land. Yeah. They each went up 3 stories, and they were like your typical, Toronto, like skinny house. So it was only like maybe 13 feet wide. But it went up 3 stories, and I saw 2 of them on one pad. And I thought, well, I mean, it's on Bridge or it's on Curry, right? Yeah. No one's objecting to that. But like, when do you think that we're going to start to see these types of conversations about like meaningful infill? Like when do you think like Dugald or Caroline is going to see these applications? And how do you think the city's going to react to it?
Well, I think the city would want it. You are seeing it a little bit. I mean, if you look down Olette, I mean, how many of those big old houses on Olette have been torn down and were, vacant properties for quite a while? And I mean, even where Valente built their condo rentals over there, that was, at one time just, there had to be houses there at one point. So, it really comes down to, it's a cost issue, because even those little houses on Bridge, if you're on a 30-foot lot, and you're paying $300,000 for that, it's still kind of expensive for land when you can get, an infill lot that's been, where the house burned down or something, you get it about $2,000 a foot, or even $3,000 a foot, will only be $90,000. So it doesn't make sense yet from a financial thing to start, buy $300,000 houses and you're $1 million for, 100 feet. That doesn't make sense yet. So when that happens, then you'll see it. But I think that's pretty far off. We've talked about this many times. We don't have any kind of regional development plans around here. So, Essex, Tecumseh, just approved another, agricultural, transferring it over to residential on concession 11, I believe it was up by the new hospital site. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. Down where you were talking, those kind of places, if they burn down or if they're a disaster, they tear them down and they'll build like, they're student housing, right? That's all they are. So you're building, 5 units on where one was before, or 2 houses were before. That makes sense, but that only makes sense if you bought it cheap years ago, or there was an accidental fire and then you got the insurance money and decided to rebuild something better, bigger.
So do you think that, just picking up on what John was talking about, do you think that there's potentially an opportunity for developers to start purchasing land that is being used right now for, multi-unit rentals that are maybe, the old house converted into 2 apartments type thing, and make more efficient use of that land? I think in neighborhoods like Glengarry Marintet, where I think there's probably a ton of opportunity. It's a terrific location, in the city, and it seems to me there's a golden opportunity there, but somebody has to buy the land and actually develop it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a zoning issue too, because if your house if it's a single family zoning, generally most of the time you can build a duplex on it, but that's about it. So we've had these conversations where the neighbors kind of get in and they don't want this, it's NIMBYism, right? So there's some difficulty there. Look, if a developer, wanted to buy, Glengarry or even a neighborhood downtown, everybody would like to get rid of these houses and build 4 units on there, because you make a fortune on it right now. So there's desire to do it. Like I said, I just don't think we're at the point where the numbers make sense from a land purchase. You see that, Riverside Drive's a perfect example. Over the years, you've seen all those cottages disappear and, $2 million houses being built, but that's a whole different tax bracket than most of us live in. So, in a perfect world, you'd see a lot of, 4plexes go up, where a house like mine that sits on a 35-foot lot downtown. And, it'll start to happen, but again, it's a land price cost. Until the land prices get so high that it makes sense to buy a house, it won't happen, because, you can just go to LaSalle and get some green space that's $2,500 a foot frontage or something like that. Turn you're on mute there, Johnny.
You just hit the issue that Windsor has, right? I mean, the exponential ability that we have to sprawl.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, then look, I don't like, I lived in a big city. I lived in Toronto for a long time and loved it. I love the urban lifestyle, but, for whatever it's worth, Windsor doesn't seem to be all that interested in doing that kind of thing. And we're just going to keep spreading out. And then we had Councillor Don from Amherstburg on, and, he brought that up when I asked him about development out in Amherstburg. And, they had consultants go down there and say, either you develop or you die, because they need the added tax base. So that's not going to change anytime soon in my lifetime, probably, the sprawl situation, just because, we're different municipalities. If this was Toronto or the GTA or something, you have one governing body. We don't have that here. So you're, like it or not, we're kind of probably going to be stuck with it.
We're so dictated by votes right now that even development can be hindered by those votes. It's one of those small town, big town problems that we have.
Yeah. And I think, something, I've been in this business for 21 years now, and, something
old guy.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people need to understand, and, even the younger people, look, it was 10 years ago, they were telling us millennials weren't going to buy houses. Who's buying all these houses? It's millennials. And where are they buying houses? They're buying in Amherstburg because they're raising their young families. The reality is this area was never a very urban area. It was a bunch of little towns that got amalgamated. And there still seems to be that desire for, people, they buy their first house in downtown Windsor because they can afford it. Then they move to South Windsor. And then, you get to your 40s and you want to move to Amherstburg and live out in the county and not have neighbors anymore. There's still that desire for, the people of this area. And I don't know if that changes anytime soon.
Let's go on to the next topic, but I do want to leave on this note, Don, with you. How long do you think that downtown houses will be cheaper in Windsor than suburban houses?
Long time.
Long time, huh?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Easy answer.
I'll be retired by it. And the reason what's good now, and this is gentrification, perfect prime example right out of the textbook, is people are buying houses downtown, and I live downtown. I'm happy about it. The lower income, lower priced houses are marginally percentage wise going up a lot more because that's all people can afford. And even people like me who live downtown, been down here for 15 years, who can afford to go somewhere else, it's all at the price points you're looking outside the city. It's easier for me to spend 50 grand or 100 grand to just turn my downtown house into what I want. So, and a lot of people are doing that. So you're going to see the lesser neighborhoods are going to be gentrified, and people are going to start throwing money into these houses. And it's 100% based off of, this is all I can afford.
So, I do want to stay on this one more second. I apologize. Don, sticking with you on this one, I got a friend, he bought his place for like 170. Not quite into the Walkerville area, but it's on Moy, and it's near the tracks going up towards Tecumseh. And if he had people selling their places on the same street for like 350, 450. I guess, what incentive is there for government to fix this housing crisis? I mean, like it's tough. You're watching houses continually increase year after year after year. And it's directly tied now to a situation of like their equity. When I talk to my friend, he's very progressive, and he goes, I think the government should just fix the issue. We got to fix it. We got to make it better. If that means more money, we'll save people's lives. We'll help to make things better. And I go, yeah, but are you willing to pull like 100 grand out of potential like savings, like, or sales, if you wanted that? Like if you could sell it tomorrow for 500 grand, would you take it? But if the day after the government says like, oh, we're going to invest $4 trillion and build more housing, you lose 50, 75, 100 grand of the equity because there's more stock. Like, how do you deal with it? Do you think there's an impetus, Don, for anyone to actually fix this?
I think there is. This is a new problem for Windsor. I mean, this has been a Toronto and bigger city problem for decades. We're shocked because, we're used to 2% price increases over long term, not 25, 30% price increases in a year. And what people need to understand, the plus side of this, and it sucks for the people trying to get in the market now, is, if you bought your house 10 years ago and you're getting older like I am, and you're eyeing up retirement more than starting new things in life, your home basically becomes your retirement fund. So, for the government to come in and say, we're going to quote unquote fix this by chopping the values of all your houses in half, then they have another problem with older people retiring without enough money. So it's a double-edged sword. The reality is public housing that's needed is very different than the private sector housing market. And one really shouldn't affect the other, because the reality is if the government's going to fix this, they're just going to build 40-story high-rise apartment buildings and rent them out. That's not going to affect, your friend who's in South Walkerville on Moy Street. So there's a balancing act. You can't, I read a lot about obviously real estate, and the government's looking at this, trying to figure out how to do it, but they don't want to kill this industry, because right now in the economy, building and development is a huge job producer. I mean, even in Windsor, if we weren't expanding all these housing projects like we were, what would our unemployment rates be? So it's, they don't really have big picture, thinking, much incentive to really stop this.
Yeah, it's a very tough nut to crack. Absolutely. And we'll keep watching it. I guess it'll take some, like a politician who's really willing to go out on a limb and say, I want to do something about it. Here's my proposal. But we've yet to see that.
Well, and like John said, it's a donmerrifieldjr.com if you're having real estate issues. Just go to my website.
It'll explain how private
Everything.
property should be abolished, and we should all be provided with the benefits of such. Let's go on to our next topic. We're going to be talking about the City of Windsor's Sunshine List. You got to give the city credit for this one. I think it was Doug Schmidt, Windsor Star, who put out that it was 4:58 p.m. or something close to it on Friday afternoon that the city put out the Sunshine List, and God bless them. That's good communication strategy. If you're looking to try to put something under the radar, do it on a Friday afternoon, especially when your city doesn't have a Monday paper. Like it's brilliant. Well done. But this is what you come here to the show for. We're going to talk about it. Of course, the Sunshine List reveals everyone on a public budget in the municipality that's making over $100,000 per year, you know that this comes from a 1996 Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act, and I don't think there's a lot of crazy stuff here. We saw 173 firefighters, 44 fire captains, 244 overall. We saw 5 lawyers and 10 nurses, 265 constables, 11 inspectors, 79 staff sergeants, 81 managers, and 16 directors. The issue that I had was the specific stories that I never saw before this year talking about the health unit. Now I get it. It's been a very controversial year. It's easy to try to say, look at all these people that are in the healthcare sector that are making money. Oh my God, they've made more money, especially under COVID. They're making money off of our backs. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But Doug, I want to ask you, what's your take on the Sunshine List this year? And what do you think about the focus on the healthcare side of things that we've seen in our local media?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The what pieces of the Sunshine List get attention is based on who's controversial, who is in the public eye right now, and who is likely to drive engagement. There's a whole lot of organizations that you could choose to dig into in a year when the Children's Aid Society, for example, is controversial. You might see articles about the Sunshine List at the Children's Aid Society. There's lots and lots of people on this list who live in our community. And I do think that the focus changes year to year based on kind of who is in the spotlight or who's on the hot seat. In general, talking about the Sunshine List across the province, I think the fact that it's not indexed to inflation makes it kind of increasingly farcical every year. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I think that a $100,000 income in 2021 is somewhere in the mid to high 60s when this law actually came into force. So we're talking now about middle incomes. We're talking about people who have incomes that are in the kind of the broad segment of the community. However, in Windsor, I think these stories have bite, and I think these stories get under people's skin, because what we've seen in Windsor especially is an erosion in people's wages. Once upon a time, Windsor was a city in the top 10 in the country in terms of the median family income. $55,000 and change is now the median family income in Windsor. If your family is getting by at the median or lower, then these numbers are probably pretty outrageous to you. And I think there's something good to think about and to dig into there, because we do have, at least in my perception, we have expanding income inequality, and that's a problem. And I think the Sunshine List also helps us highlight what we value as a community. Our mayor, who comes in at number 10 in the top 10 highest paid people in the city, mayor's a tough job. It needs to be decently compensated in order to attract good quality candidates. But our mayor makes more than the mayor of Toronto. Our mayor makes a lot of money. And when you consider that, and then you look at the 9 people who are above him on the list, who I'm sure all work very hard and worked hard and got an education and the training they needed to have these jobs. At the same time, as a community, the city government is constantly looking to squeeze down on the lowest paid people. We're looking to outsource people who are caretakers, whose jobs are never going to be on the Sunshine List, who, even 20 years from now, when that $100,000 figure is even further eroded, the folks who pick up our garbage and the folks who clean our facilities are probably not going to be on that list. So when, as a community, we are working so hard to squeeze down the people who are arguably already in a tough position because they're on the lower end of the income scale, in a city where costs are ever rising. We just talked about housing for about 15 minutes and the outrageous cost of housing in this community.
I'm not saying that it's the city's fault. I'm not saying that because Honorio Colucci made $278,000, that's the reason why income inequality exists. That's not what I think. But I do think that it sheds some light on what is valued by the city and what is valued in this city. And when you have a mayor who is among the highest paid in the country for mayors in a city that has a relatively low median family income, what does that tell you about the values of our community?
I really do think that you bring up a good point there, Doug. No one's questioning, the amount of money that people work. Lord knows it's hard work. You're running a city, you're running its agencies, its boards, its committees. You're overseeing stuff. Like I don't care. Any one of these people, they deserve to make the money that they're making. It's hard work. Lord knows. But I really do think that you brought up a very good point, which is that there are so many Windsorites that are running their households, and I don't want to try to treat like a house budget like it's a business budget or a city budget as a business budget, but I guess it's a good context to just I guess jump onto, is where you have people that are never going to be making this amount of money, and they see Honorio Colucci $278,000 a year, and that's fine. Like I don't have anything against it. I guess so. I want to, though, focus this more towards the stories that we've seen about Dr. Ahmed at the Windsor's Essex County Health Unit. And I believe it was reported, of course, he made, believe it was like around $275,000. And then we've seen the stories that are saying like, oh, look at all these hospital employees that are making more money this year than they've ever made before. Where do you think that this kind of a thing can become a problem, Don? It's not to say that these people making money is the issue, but when you have the dichotomy that Doug was just discussing, right? The disparity between what your average, I don't want to say average worker, excuse me, but between your public disclosures here and Joe Schmo, who makes, I don't know, 35 grand a year, 40 grand.
Just
like,
before Don gets in there, I just want to do a quick fact check.
Yeah, please.
Dr. Ahmed's salary in 2020 was $351,767, and that's a big jump over 2019 when it was $271,878.
Okay. I guess I'll pull back into this then. Do we have 2020 numbers there? Like what? Like I guess like, or is that 20? Like what you're talking about, was that last year's number?
2020 is 351,767. Yeah.
So we can presume that jump is because of, I guess, COVID overtime, presumably.
Yeah, I would assume so.
I would think most people who are in the medical field who are now on this list, it's because of overtime hours.
I think that almost speaks to like what we're talking about right now. Like, oh man, imagine I think a lot of people look at a job like that and go like, oh, the salary is the salary. Like, and then you get overtime on top of it for something like that. This speaks to this idea of how far removed these wages are. And it goes back to like this conversation that we were just having earlier, like the first topic, I guess, housing prices, how they are removed from, you're just, I guess, average worker who's just making a buck. Don, like, when does this become an issue? Like, it seems like it's a growing gap.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, like Doug said. When this all happened back, when Harris was premier and this kind of came out, like Doug said, Windsor used to be a very wealthy community. We had all the auto plants here. They were, on average, very well-paid jobs. And so I don't think we cared as much back then because everybody was making good money. So, if someone's on the sunshine list making, 30, 40 grand more than you, who cares, right? I guess what interests me in this is I would be more interested in seeing a comparison between private sector and public sector pay scales. Dr. Ahmed, look, I know nothing about his job, and I'm certainly not qualified to do it. And I don't know if that's, what he's getting paid is outlandish or not. I would assume it's not. If you look at, David Muji runs the hospital. He's making almost 400 grand too. Is that a lot compared to someone else running, a private health clinic or, something like that? I don't know. I think that's would be the more interesting comparison. Like Doug had said, I mean, this came out, this started back in the 90s when $100,000 was a lot more money than it is now. If they changed this and said, okay, now we're going to look at people who are making $200,000, I think that would probably be that'd be more valid for people's outrage because, if you're making 100 grand a year in the grand scheme of things, that just means you're a professional, in most parts of Canada. So you're not going to be very upset about it. But and like John said, I think it's perspective. There's a lot of families in Windsor who have not seen their incomes go up. And if anything, they've seen their incomes go down for the last 20, 30 years. And mainly because of, the manufacturing situation and the economic collapse we had in 2007, a lot of these companies were able to say, well, now we're going to start you at $15, $20 an hour as opposed to $30 an hour. And there was a market for it because a lot of people were unemployed. Do I care that a police officer is making $100,000? No. But am I interested that, someone at City Hall as CAO is making $400,000? Yeah, that kind of interests me because, I would like to see if that's a reasonable rate that person doing the same job in the public sector can expect. And I think the mayor making almost 200 grand, while at the same time our city councilors are making $45,000 a year, I think that's a very interesting conversation. And I think it is part of the problem with how this city is run. It's a very top-down organization because let's face it, I mean, and I'm not casting shadow or saying bad things about any of the counselors, but there's not a lot of people who can afford to do that job. It's a full-time job. It's a lot of work. We know a lot of counselors personally. We hear the stories, what they have to deal with, that none of us in our lives would ever want to deal with the public like that. And they're making 45 grand a year and they have to supplement their income somehow. That's why you get a lot of retired people, or, you get people trying to do this as a part-time job and they can't. So I would think the city councilors who are looking at the mayor going, he's making 5 times the amount of money we're making almost. That is more interesting to me than the actual numbers. For, a police officer making 120 grand a year, I don't really care about that unless they were making 50 grand more than a police officer in Toronto. That's it's comparison. You want to see what the comparisons are more so than the actual numbers themselves and the comparisons between the public sector and the private sector.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on that because I don't think you can paint with a broad brush here. You need to look at individual roles and compare them against the private sector. And I think depending on what you specifically look at, you're going to hear different stories. I wouldn't think that there are a lot of people in senior management in this town who are pulling in the kind of money that the people on the executive team at the City of Windsor are pulling in. But I want to focus in on a couple of jobs that I looked at on the Sunshine List because I was interested because they relate to my industry. The CIO of the city is roughly around $140,000, which is a pretty good salary, especially in Windsor. Not exactly setting the world on fire for a CIO level job with that level of complexity, that number of users, that number of critical systems. I think it would be pretty light for that level. The person that you need at that level would be far better compensated in the private sector. But then you flip it around and you have some people working as systems analysts on the list, on the Sunshine List at the City of Windsor, and they're on the Sunshine List making over $100,000 a year as systems analysts. And you would very rarely see anybody in that type of role in the private sector in Windsor, Ontario, getting 6 figures. So like I said, I think it resists broad analysis. I think you have to dig into the individual roles and then also there are people with different levels of experience or different incumbency in the city who would have different figures. But at the end of the day, it used to be that working in some of the mainstream jobs in this city, working at Chrysler Assembly Plant, working in a job like that put you in, as you said, Don, into a pretty good income bracket, put you solidly in a upper middle class lifestyle, especially if both parents worked. I certainly can remember families that, you know, of whose kids were my friends when I was younger, and both parents would work at FCA or somewhere similar to that, and they had a pretty darn good lifestyle. That I think is eroding. That lifestyle is eroding. A lot of people in Windsor are seeing their prospects and what they hoped for their kids eroding. And I think that's what bugs people about stuff like this when you see the list. But I also think that every year the outrage gets a little bit less. The other thing about the Sunshine List is that it's not a gimmick that can work year in, year out. It's, you know, we've had 20 years of this thing plus, and I just don't think that it generates the same kind of outrage that it did in years 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now it's mostly, I think, something that generates some pretty easy content for media to pump out a few stories that are going to get some good engagement. You're going to get a lot of angry comments in there because there's a lot of angry people, and then we move on.
Yeah, I think the example you brought up is a very good one. You know, like you said, I think the Sunshine List is more, look, you know, people want to get mad at David Muggi because he's making $400,000, or, you know, the head of St. Clair or the University of Windsor is making almost 300 grand. Sure, that's fine. But you know, is anyone getting mad at a cop because they're making 100 grand, or a teacher? No. But the example you brought up was a very good example. And I'm going to go back to my real estate industry. You know, back 2004-ish, 2005-ish, kind of before, you know, that's when we first started seeing kind of multiple offers happening. Your example was spot on there. You know, it was very typical, and I'm going to let you in a little secret. There are real estate agents like myself who would have clients who both worked at Chrysler or GM or one of the factories. And back then, you know, they were pulling in, you know, between the two of them, they're probably making 150 grand a year. And they were the ones buying the $400,000 brand new houses, and they'd always show up in brand new $50,000 trucks and things like that. And I think there was a bit of envy in that. And I think what you're seeing now is the children of those people. And I think that's the conversation we see in this community a lot is, look, I'm a parent, you're a parent, John's a kid, but we all want our kids to do better than us, and we all want them to have a better lifestyle than we did. Yeah, well, you're lucky you're not homeless, but I know your father and your parents are good people. You always want your kids to do better, but that dream really for low barrier to entry, education-wise job, like just, you know, I have a lot of friends people I went to high school with who walked out of high school, walked into Chrysler, and are now retiring. Their kids can't do that anymore. That's not a feasible thing. And with housing prices now going up, if you're working at Chrysler and you're starting at $20 an hour and you're making, you know, 5, you're making 50, 60 grand a year, you're having a hard time buying a house, period. Let alone something you probably grew up in that was a nice subdivision house in South Windsor, LaSalle, that would have been considered a quite expensive house back then, which is now an $800,000 house that you'll never be able to afford. So I think it's more perspective. And I think that's the problem in the community the last 20 years with economic diversification, development, all that things, is we went from being a very high income, low barrier to entry workforce lifestyle to now you can still get those jobs. They're fewer and far between, but you're not going to have that kind of lifestyle that you used to have. And you have to get an education now. And I think that it's almost a culture war we're having at this point, and it's just kind of just has to work through the generations.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I disagree with Doug that it's not as big an issue as when it first came out. I think that as this gap continues to grow, that the Sunshine List might become, I guess, more and more offensive as each year goes by, because as Don, you just said, you know, in Windsor specifically, you used to have two parents that could be pulling down 65, 75, 80 grand a year or whatever at a, you know, a tool and die place. And now it's down to one job, and the kids trying to figure out what can they do. And the job that they can apply for is actually only like $50,000 because it's, you know, it's a 2-tier wage system, and it's not being addressed. It's being, you know, business is going to do what business was going to do.
And that was always, you know, when the economy collapsed, that was the conversation, and that's what we have to look at now. Like, is now the problem? Or was the problem back then you could walk out of high school at 18, or you drop out of high school and make $65,000, $70,000 a year doing a job, like working at a tool and die place. So it's just our perspective in this community, because we had that advantage and now we don't have that anymore. And I think that's what bothers people more so than, you know, Officer Smith making $100,000 a year.
Definitely agree with you on that. Now, I know that you've got stuff that you have to do tonight, Don. You're showing 18 houses before the moon goes up. So we got to get to this next topic. It's a go.
Actually, I got a recording session. I got to be somewhere at 7 o'clock to record some music. So my other life.
You have a recording session. It's right now, and we're doing it. Like, and you're trying to leave. It's a problem.
Music, John, not talking.
To the people that listen, I don't know. I don't know why you want to depreciate our listeners, but to them, this is music. It's an orchestra.
It is,
but I come in like I've got the trumpet going, and
let's face it, John.
The hamstrung bass.
I was a musician for a long time, and you're a musician, and we all know that musicians are the coolest people around. So obviously, we can talk all we want. It's
computer programmers. What are you kidding me?
Right after computer programmers, then it's guitar players, singers, bass players, and trumpet players. That's how it goes.
I'm going to take offense to that. I mean, I rarely get an opportunity as a trumpet player to be put in like good graces, but like, how dare you put an IT programmer before a trumpet player? Thank you. That's fine. Let's go on to this topic here. Doug, nothing against you with that. It's a go, says the Windsor Star. Ontario greenlights Windsor's new hospital in the provincial budget. Brian Cross put this one out today. The Ontario government on Wednesday greenlit the long-sought new acute care hospital in Windsor, our so-called mega hospital. Government officials have done what they will do, put out a lot of talk about it, but we'll give you the facts right now. Windsor was hoping to receive $8 to $10 million to move to stage 2 of the new mega hospital project, the critical planning stage. But today, the province allocated $9.8 million. So the project's a go. The money will fund the next stage, where details are worked out on what care will be provided at the new hospital and how it will operate. Premier Ford expressed his commitment to the new hospital when he visited Windsor, Essex last August. He said that the $2 billion hospital project for Windsor, Essex was his number one priority. Wow, that was last August. I really hope that his number one priority back in August was like COVID and dealing with it, not our hospital. But I'm not here to just give criticisms. We're here to talk to you all about it. This is a big deal. I mean, as much as we've had this back and forth, this argument, this camp versus the institution argument, I suppose that there is, we've actually reached this point. Doug, do you think that this means it's actually going to be in the budget? And then I guess my part 2 to it is, we had Premier Ford say we're going to get a double widened Highway 3. So does this mean that that's not going to happen? Or more broadly, do you think that Windsor Essex is going to see billions of dollars flow down?
Yeah, so I think that you should probably look to the capital planning when the planning for how capital is going to be expended across the province when those numbers are released, and see if the Windsor Hospital has moved from the more than 5 years to start range that it has been for a while. This $10 million investment, I think, is pretty political. And to me, if you look at the timing here, there's no reason the Ford government couldn't have advanced this money in prior years. They choose to do it now. There's an election next year. I think this gives their local candidates something to campaign on. And you can see that has happened because the local candidates are all over this. And interestingly enough, they were all over this before the budget was released, which I found fascinating. I kind of had a feeling this was going to be in the budget today just because of the flurry of activity we saw yesterday and in recent days with PC candidates and David Mouget and Drew Dilkins all trying to get in front of the budget announcement and put their stake in the ground beforehand. So I find that all really interesting. I don't think that we can draw too many conclusions from it. I do have to wonder how local NDP folks are feeling right now. You know, they were famously all in on the mega hospital. You have the photograph with the all of the NDP representatives provincially and David Mouget. They have been pretty vocal proponents of the new hospital over the last few years. And you've got to wonder how they're feeling about it and how that is going to play out in a campaign. If you're looking to Essex or Windsor-Tecumseh and you're the PCs, if you think that advocacy for the mega hospital is going to be a difference maker for you versus the NDP incumbents, then what exactly is your argument going to be, and how exactly are you going to communicate that? And I think it's really interesting because essentially the argument boils down to vote for us because otherwise we won't do what Windsor needs. We won't do what the, you know, what people think that they need down there. And I think that's going to be a pretty interesting, it's going to be a pretty interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to observing and participating in those conversations. Yeah, so, you know, I don't think that it, I think obviously for Windsor Regional Hospital, this is better than not seeing it in the budget. It's a good thing for them. You can see that the We Are Ready people are practically wetting themselves with excitement over this. So there, you know, there's, sorry, We Can't Wait. We Are Ready was one of the previous AstroTurf campaigns. We Can't Wait people are like wetting themselves over this. So obviously this is positive if you are a supporter of the 42 location and the mega hospital, but ultimately I think it's probably more of a political signifier than it is of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to, I'll agree with that. I think politics is playing a lot in this, especially with an election coming up. And I think you'll see that. I think this helps more periphery candidates outside the city of Windsor. You know, you got Andrew Dowie running out in Windsor-Tecumseh. You know, probably your county people, that's where they're, you know, the Conservatives generally are only going to get support in this area. So this is probably playing pretty good to those people. And I think what, you know, going back on something John said, you know, with the pandemic happening, you know, the pandemic probably crystallized everything that's bad with our healthcare infrastructure down here. You know, we've heard basically for isolation and things like that, they've been hanging plastic and running air ducts, you know, flex. So it's, you know, this has really shown hopefully the people locally and hopefully our government that, you know, our infrastructure down here has been horrible for way too long and we deserve a lot better. And hopefully this, you know, everybody plays politics with this. I mean, we can go back and say, you know, the Liberals were throwing this around and they never did anything, but every time an election came out, they talked about it a lot. So, you know, we all understand that politics plays a lot in these big multi-billion-dollar funding announcements. Is it a good thing? Look, anything to move with the process along. I'm not even going to sit here and talk about the location because my head will explode again. To me, someone my age with parents who are getting older, who, you know, use the medical infrastructure in this area more and more, it is horrendous. We need new hospital. We need new hospital infrastructure. Where you put it, I don't give a rat's ass at this point. So, you know, I think it's a good thing. I think this will lead into, you know, probably next year with an election coming up, we hopefully will see some more solid numbers being thrown this way. But it's one step. You know, it's better than what we've had for the last 5 years, which has been nothing. So I don't see this as a bad thing. I wish it wasn't taking this long, but that's, you know, that's just the way government works, unfortunately.
Okay, so just
Doug, before you give your last thought there, I really do just want to quick jump in, and it goes off of what you were saying the first time there around, which is like, okay, like $9 million, $10 million, like it's nothing. Like it's 10 million. Don't get me wrong, $10 million is like very needed to get us to the next stage, but it's a $2 billion project. Like, we obviously have our levy that's going to be contributing to it. But if the Ford government wanted to say, hey, this was our priority, vote for us, you know, you'd think they'd put a shovel in the ground.
That'll be next year.
But only if you vote for them. And I guess that's my point, is that like, they're not even trying to use this right now as like a signature thing. Like, do you think, Doug, that they're really not looking at this region as a vote picking up area. And I don't mean to cross the streams here. I know that we're getting into your other life as well. So I'm not trying to get you to be too partisan and opining on this, but like, if they really wanted to make a significant investment, they could have, right? If they really wanted to show that like there will be shovels in the ground next year, they could have made a much bigger investment, but we're still in the planning phases now, even with this. Like, Doug, what's your take?
Well, you've got to think that if you're the PCs and you're expecting that you're going to see some regression towards the mean in terms of results in the GTA, there's probably going to be some erosion in the PC seats up there. You're going to be looking for places around the province where you hope to pick up a few to counterbalance that. I think that I agree with Don's perspective. I think that they would have every reason to be optimistic, considering that they have a federal member in Essex. They would have every reason to be optimistic. They could pick that seat up in Essex. They may be hoping to break through in Windsor-Tecumseh. It certainly gives the appearance and gives a big lift to those candidates that they are a priority for the government enough to see this kind of investment in a budget. So I think there is actually quite a bit politically to read from this. I think you can start to pick up what the PC strategy might be and what some of the, how much of a priority these particular seats might be for them. So it is quite interesting. I cannot go away from this without talking about our friend Andrew Dowie. So he put out a video. There was a video released today celebrating this announcement in the budget. And what I noted when I watched that video is that the video was made at dusk. And it came out this afternoon, after 4 o'clock, after the budget was released, but the sun was still shining. So either there were some confidences that were violated and Mr. Dowie had information ahead of time about what was going to be in the contents of the provincial budget, or he's just making videos and socking them away just in case this or that outcome happens, So he's got the Final Four starts. Andrew's recording 32 videos. Congratulations to the national champion Gonzaga. Congratulations to the national champion, and he's shooting out the next one. And so, just assuming that that's the case, Andrew, you're going to wear yourself out. We're all worried about you.
Yeah, and actually, not only just Andrew. I mean, I was hacking around social media last night, and the mayor and is it We Can Wait? Is that what we're doing now? Or We're Ready, or whatever it is. The mayor actually put out a big video, I believe it was on either Twitter or Instagram, talking about, we need this, come on, Premier Ford, come through with the funding, and a bunch of people who work at the hospital and, your regulars that we usually see. So I don't think this was just Andrew. I think there's a lot of people who kind of knew ahead of time that this was coming. Why the government would do that, who knows, but it's good to know people. And also, going back to just, the PC's hopes down here, just today, John, and I'm going to mess up his name, but John Leontowicz, former police chief of, did I nail that, John? Did I do it?
I was going to say, you mispronounced my name terribly.
Wasn't you?
I was not a former police chief.
Yeah, so he's going to be the PC candidate in Windsor West. So it seems like they're actually putting some effort. Like we've known in the past that hell, they asked me to be a candidate once. You knew they weren't trying to win. So, it seems like they're actually trying to get some, higher profile candidates this time, because they must believe that there's a chance for them down here that they haven't seen in the past. So politics playing a part of this. Again, anything to get this process moving a little bit, even if it's just $9 million so we can get an architect to draw this thing up, whatever it is. But yeah, I think next year you'll probably see a lot more talk about this. And again, in their defense, the Liberals campaigned on this many times when the Wynne government was around, and we didn't even get $8 million. All we got was talking points. So, politics sucks sometimes, and I wish they did what was best for the people all the time, but that's just not reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right. It feels a lot like we're just going to be sitting here in a couple of years from now, thanking the provincial government, whatever the stripes are, They give us another $5 million, $6 million to get to the next step. We can actually pay the architects this time, huh?
Well, we went through this process with the bridge too. I mean, that was a never-ending conversation. So yeah, it's it's just the way these projects work, John. We all know that.
As much as it was a never-ending process, though, with the bridge, at least it was like, we're going to do this. It's going to happen. Like, I still feel like with the mega hospital, like, yeah, it's going to happen. But like, there's nothing concrete here. It's just continual electoral platitudes year after year. And even right now, where like the opportunity comes to like, we're going to do it. We're going to put the shovels in the ground. We're not there. We still aren't there.
Well,
I wasn't. I guess
John
I was.
Lidke, 2022.
Vote John Lidke. We're never getting a hospital because
That's
be
his campaign. And John's going to
So,
run on that. We're never getting a hospital. Vote for me.
no, it's just going to be weed stores, and you're all going to like it, and we're going to smoke ourselves towards salvation. But that's the show. I think we did it, you guys.
Good
I think
stuff.
we did it. We got through it all. We were going to talk about the 7 wonders of Windsor that's being presented, but I think we all know it's the penis bush. It's number 1 through 7, so we don't need to even discuss it. We all are aware that's what it is. But I really liked this episode because it was one of the ones where we got into the weeds of like, what does it mean to be a Windsorite? Like, in these issues, they're serious issues. Like, you look at the Sunshine List. If you're not making that amount of money, you question it. You look to our hospital. You wonder why the new one hasn't been built yet. And you look towards our housing stock, and you're wondering, why can't it get better? So I always love being able to be the host and just sort of sit back and get your educated insights and responses. As much as Don keeps there he goes. He's gone. So great. I love this. Don just disappears. No one needs to hear him. I love to get these different insights to it. It's not like we're here trying to provide you with the answer, folks, but like, there are different perspectives. And this is all what goes into the decision-making process here at the city. So Doug, just thanks. I don't think I've said thanks enough.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Well, from us to you at Rose City Politics, we want to thank you for listening to us tonight. I know that Don Merrifield has abandoned ship. It's because DonMerrifieldJr.com has gotten way too much traffic, so he has to go hoist the mainsail and make sure that it keeps up tonight. But our regular panel, of course, including myself, John Lidke, we had Doug Sartori and Don Merrifield. Thank you to LiUNA 625, building better communities. They make this show possible, as do you, our Patreon subscribers. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, head over to patreon.com/Rose City Politics. We're in BizX every month with a new column. You're going to want to see this one as well for April. And just check us on social media. We're everywhere. Rose City Politics. So thanks for joining us, folks.